Is there a chance that we emerge from this across the coming years where there really are kind of no winners from this, where almost every player is worse off in the end? I don't know. I'm just tossing it out there for somebody.
No. It's a very sensible question. I mean, the way I've been looking at it is slightly differently. I think we're going to end up worse off than, say, the greater Asian bloc. I mean, China has got exactly the same cyclical bank credit problem. There is a difference, though, and that is that the big banks in China are all owned by the government or controlled by the government, so that they can actually, because the executives in the banks are essentially functionaries rather than profit-seeking directors or executives, then those banks will expand credit if they're told to do so. So I can see that happening. I mean, we've already had, I think, in the last week or two cuts in sort of fairly small cuts in interest rates in China to try and stop the slide in confidence in the property markets. So yeah, they've got those problems. They've managed to avoid the cyclicality of bank credit, basically because they control the banks. But it's got to the stage where it's caught up with them. What I would say is that in the long term, there is the demand for property in China. Of that, I would have no doubt. It's just that the whole of the sort of supply and demand story has just got ahead of itself, and it needs to pause. China still has an awful lot to do in terms of putting in infrastructure around it. It is, I mean, I saw that China has apparently forgiven loans to 8 African countries, so it's in the business, I think, of ensuring that it stimulates or it doesn't destroy markets outside its own immediate domestic sphere. And your comment about Russia, I mean, the thing that's interesting is that the people who think Russia is a dead duck tend to look at it in Keynesian terms. They actually don't understand that if the ruble goes from 150 to the current level of 59, which it has done in a matter of just 3 or 4 months, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, they think this is shock horror, ghastly, goes against all macroeconomic theory we've been taught. The key thing to remember about Russia is that the level of taxation is extremely low. And that's actually very good for economic activity. They don't necessarily collect all the statistics which we salivate over about, how the economy is doing and all the rest of it. But, with the basic rate of income tax, a flat rate, I think, of 13%, God, dream on. Wouldn't I like that?
Right.
That would encourage me to go out and do things. And I mean, other taxes are relatively minor. You could argue that it can afford this because it is such an exporter of commodities. I wouldn't argue against that. But the finances, Russia's finances actually are pretty good. And I would say that they're a lot better than the West. So again, there's no such thing as a perfect government. I mean, in fact, the less government, the better, as far as I'm concerned. You do have that to an extent in Russia, if only they would smarten up in terms of property rights. And if they'd smarten up against the state's propensity to remove people it doesn't like through claiming that they owe tax or whatever. I mean, they destroy businesses. They're quite happy to destroy people and their businesses. That is not good. I mean, property rights should be respected, and that's one lesson that they haven't learned. But other than that, I would say that Russia is in a far better position than many, many Western nations. And particularly when you take into account that their banking system is pretty secure. Thanks to us, we've isolated them from our problems, which I don't think was quite the intention. But anyway, that's the effect of it.
Right.
This banking crisis we face in the West is going to be probably the most severe thing we've ever seen. I mean, it's got the potential to destroy currencies and all the rest of it. So where does that leave Russia and China? Well, China is mismanaging its situation, but not to the extent that it's going to kill the economy entirely. Russia is sitting there quite happily achieving its geopolitical objectives. It's the way I put it.
If you enjoyed this video clip, click here to watch another one you should like.